Welcome to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil, Nick Padone. Happy birthday to Nick over here. Hopefully you guys had a great holiday. Give us a little recap. Are you one of those people that Christmas and your birthday gets thrown in together, obviously?
It does. Shout out Mama Padone has always done a great job of keeping them separate. You know, like she's never been one to double up on, the presents or do them the same day, even back to when I was younger and there were some, lazier relatives that wanted to just jumble it all into one day. She puts her foot down every year. I am a crazy preemie baby. Like I was born super early. So like my birthday should have been like well into January.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, she does a good job like splitting them up.
Cool. Good for you. McNeil, how was Christmas with the fam?
It was good. 3 kiddos got some good presents, I think. My son got this chair that, it's AC, it's got heating, it's a gaming chair that's supposedly top of the line, so he's happy. Daughter got a new watch. My son got some inserts for his shoes. So everybody got what they wanted for Christmas. So it was a good Christmas around the McNeil household.
Inserts in the shoes is awesome.
Isn't that wild? He said they make him jump higher. The inserts were like $150. I mean,
wow.
The shoes themselves cost less than the inserts. So hopefully that's going to elevate his game. I don't know.
All right. I see you treated yourself to a nice haircut and a new hat.
That's right. And this is a new Cavs hat. It's a very Cavs Christmas. A lot of Cavs gear was trading hands this Christmas season amongst our family. So good stuff. Keep winning, Cavs, because it's really good vibes right now.
How quickly things change. I was thinking last year the hottest selling item out there was the Joe Flacco jersey.
I had mine.
Everybody was getting the Joe Flacco jersey for Christmas. Joe Flacco did the Browns another favor on Sunday, and he lost against the New York Giants. The Browns are now in a much better position to find that quarterback of the future. Joe Flacco is the gift that keeps on giving this holiday season.
Nick, you had put it up on X yesterday, but what are the things that have to fall into place for our Brownies to get that #1 draft pick?
Yeah, if the draft was today, the Browns would be drafting 3rd overall, which is a pretty good position to be in, especially when you look at the team ahead of you is the New England Patriots currently have the #1 pick. We know they're not going to draft a quarterback. The Titans need a quarterback. But for the Browns to get the #1 pick next week, the Ravens need to beat the Browns. They're currently a 17.5-point favorite in that game. So that should be a pretty easy one to check off your list. The New England Patriots need to beat the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills are already sitting pretty in the AFC playoff picture, so they could rest Josh Allen. They could rest some key pieces. And then the Titans have to beat the Texans. Same story there. The Texans already have the AFC South all locked up, so they're going to rest some players. And Tennessee could pull an upset in that game, similar to what we saw just happen where the Giants fumbled away the #1 overall pick. The Browns are in a decent position to perhaps jump both of these teams and walk away out of this disastrous season with the #1 overall pick. And that would at least be consolation for some of the fans out there that will at least have a meaningful draft pick as we look towards the future.
Cool.
Especially since we haven't had much to look forward to in terms of the draft the last few years, thanks to Deshaun Watson. And now, kind of thanks to Deshaun Watson, we're also going to be picking high in this year's draft. So it's going to be a fun offseason, one of those off seasons of old for the Cleveland Browns fans. Us long-standing ones, we're kind of used to looking forward to the draft. So the spring is going to be it for us.
It's a quieter time of year for baseball, obviously, but I did kind of like what Jack, shout out to Big Play Jack, asked us ahead of the show, which was Cleveland sports New Year's resolutions. Do you have one for our Guardians?
I think what the Guardians should get in the offseason, is that what we're looking for? Because I'd love to see more hitting for this team right now. I think we've done some nice things to try and solidify this starting rotation. I'd still love to see another bat. It seems like we say that every single year. We're able to do it with kind of smoke and mirrors like we did last year, having young guys contribute. We talked about it last year, kind of that road between Columbus to Cleveland and new guys we hadn't heard about, guys like Jokenzie Noel, who we'd heard a little bit about, and now we're talking big Christmas all the time. So we're hoping for some emergence this year. And if we don't go out and get a bat, then I'd like to see the emergence of these younger guys, because that's what we're going to need if we're going to compete next year, because I think Detroit's going to be better. It's going to be tougher in the division. So we're going to need to add something or have this team step up to the next level.
Big time. It was fascinating hearing our interview back that we did last week with Joe Noga of Cleveland.com, and he really did a great job of breaking down the fact that this division is getting a lot better. The Tigers are going to be better. We saw them in that first round, and they gave the Gardos really a good run for their money there. So yeah, they got to keep improving. Otherwise, last year is going to be more of a mirage and less of the norm.
Yeah, one of the things I had for us was a little specific. It's one of the things I pay attention to at the ballpark the most, a stat, to see how clutch someone is at the plate when there's runners in scoring position. I don't love leaving men on base. I felt like we beat ourselves a few times in clutch scenarios this year, especially when it came to the playoffs. So my resolution for our Gardos is to be getting those guys in and be super clutch when we've got runners in scoring position. Okay, that's a wrap for kind of our rounded out sports look and some positive notes in there too. We don't want it to be all doom and gloom with our Brownies. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We've got our Cleveland sports headlines. We got a little bit into it. The Browns here. Do we want to start with our Browns 20-3? I know we don't want to dig in too far before we all just want to leave the facility too early. But
Tankathon is on right now. DTR did his part yesterday. We saw Jerry Jeudy. He had a lot of catches. He had a lot of drops. That's what you like to see in a tankathon. The Browns are set up to get the number 3 pick and aiming to get that number 1 pick. We did ourselves well on Sunday.
Yeah, DTR stands for Draft Tanking Representative, and he did his job. Mission accomplished. He said after the game he felt like he did what he needed to do on the field. Maybe when he watches the tape back on Monday, he'll feel a little bit different about his own individual performance. But yeah, DTR was awesome. I was pulling for the Browns to lose that game from the second it kicked off. Obviously, the Giants had already helped them during the 1 o'clock slate, so the Browns just needed to finish the job. And you know, when Kevin Stefanski does smart, tough, accountable, for the rest of the season, we need to do what the Browns do best. Pre-snap penalties, interceptions, and missed field goals, because that's what's going to get us closer to that number 1 overall pick. So go ahead, Browns, do what you do best and keep on losing, keep on embarrassing us for the rest of the season.
That's what you like to see in December and January football. Do what you do best as it gets late in the season.
Yeah, it's interesting because Hanford's take is from a player's perspective, there are still things to be playing for towards the end of the season.
Yeah,
incentives, and maybe some of these guys are auditioning for next season. So this whole idea that anyone's tanking on purpose, are you guys over the thought of that though? The players can't be doing it on purpose.
I think organizationally, they can put some pieces in place that they think is going to set them up for the loss, and it's a loss kind of passively, right? And I think the way that Kevin Stefanski is calling a game, I think changes a little bit. They were 0 for 4 yesterday on 4th down.
I was wondering if that played a role, keeping Bojorquez off the field.
Yeah, keeping our MVP off the field, right? I think those type of decisions aid in this. I don't think you play for the win the way you would, normally during the course of the season.
And the players definitely aren't tanking. We saw that in the Giants game. Drew Lock looked right in the camera and he said, "Who cares about the number 1 overall pick?"
Yeah.
Drew, you know who cares about the number 1 overall pick? Your bosses, the people in those big fancy glass offices at the Giants headquarters in New Jersey. And that's the same thing here in Cleveland. I don't believe that the players want to lose because a lot of these guys won't be here. A lot of these guys won't be in Cleveland. They're going to be cap casualties because they're paying $175 million to Deshaun Watson to sit home. So a lot of these guys are going to be playing for other organizations. It's just the organization as a whole. They know that it's probably in their best interest to not win these games.
There are reports that the Browns may want to bring in Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins as competition for Deshaun. Do either of these guys interest you? I know we talked a little bit about Kirk Cousins last week. Are there any other candidates you'd like?
Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers coming to Cleveland? What a clown show that would be. I mean, you talk about putting up the big top. Let's go. I mean, you're used to the Browns at a certain level of craziness. You bring in Aaron Rodgers, that just takes it up a level. I don't think the Browns are going to sign up for that. I don't think that's really on their radar. They may throw it around there nationally just because they think, veteran quarterback, maybe they could get him on a cheap deal. He wants to show something. So it checks a lot of boxes nationally. Locally, I don't think they want to bring any more of a clown show to town than what's already here in Cleveland.
On the inverse, though, Look at his stats the last 10 weeks prior to yesterday. He's been playing like a top 10 quarterback in the league. I know that he's over 40 years old. That's really not your long-term solution. I think it's crazy to say because all three of them are coming off of torn Achilles in Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, and Aaron Rodgers. I think of the three, Rodgers probably has the most juice left to actually compete in ball games and win games for the Cleveland Browns. I'll say this, though, because all these vets that keep getting thrown out, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, we heard, bring Flacco back. All these teams realize eventually at some point your path forward is through the draft. Your path forward is finding a young blue chip quarterback that you can call your own, that could be your own Joe Burrow. Until the Browns find that, they're going to continue to wander the quarterback desert that they've been parched in since 1999 when they returned. So I'd like to see them look towards the draft, but you can't deny the fact that it's Ian Rappaport putting out there that they could be interested in a vet. Yeah. And with that, we'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. It is time for our Garage Beer featured interview, and this week we're bringing on Browns reporter for Cleveland.com, Dan Labbe. Thanks so much for coming on, Dan. I know you and I go way back. This is, like we were saying, a little different than those high school football games we were working way back when. So this is a little different. It kind of feels like we're watching a high school game at times with our Brownies. Let's just get right into it. Dan, what are the Browns going to do with the quarterback position this offseason?
Wow, that's the $1 million question. I actually might rather go back and do some of those high school games instead of trying to answer that question. But look, I think because of their draft position, it just changes a lot of what they're able to do. Right now, they're sitting with that number 3 pick, and that just opens up all sorts of possibilities because New England's not going to take a quarterback at number 1 if that's how this shakes out. So that means you're going to have the opportunity to either trade up and take somebody, or potentially sit there at number 3 and take somebody. So I think that sort of changes the discussion around this position from, well, do you go after a guy like a Kirk Cousins or kind of pick at that free agency scrap heap to try and get through another season here and try and find some value later in the draft to, do you believe in Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward as somebody who can change your franchise for the long term? And that's the most important question right now, because the best way to offset that Deshaun Watson contract is to bring in somebody who can be your quarterback for the next 10 years, and you get 4 to 5 years on a rookie deal. So I think that loss yesterday and then a likely loss on Saturday in Baltimore really brings a rookie quarterback into the discussion in a big way.
Now, Dan, you brought it up, the Deshaun Watson contract. There was just a restructuring of it. Tell us, what does that do for the Browns in terms of flexibility? What does it look like for Deshaun Watson coming back next year? And what's the overall impact of that restructuring?
It just gives them the ability to have more flexibility, and they'll probably do a little more too to create more flexibility this year. But more than anything, I think it creates an exit strategy that's a little more clean than what it was, a week ago before they restructured this. Now, that being said, at some point, like, Deshaun Watson is still going to be on this roster, and Deshaun Watson at some point is going to be healthy enough to play football again. So I would caution against just outright saying we'll never see Deshaun Watson play again. I think if somebody's on the roster, they could absolutely end up on the field, whether you want them to or not. So I wouldn't rule anything out with Deshaun, but really what this does is it at least creates the possibility of a clean exit strategy, even if that's not for another offseason or two.
And I was going to say, to be clear on this, we're talking about an exit strategy after next season as it stands right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way out of this contract this year. So I think you're looking at kind of trying to figure out how to manage this year, and maybe you give him an opportunity to compete. But I think you're trying to figure out this year, and then next year you might have either next offseason or the offseason after that, you're going to have the opportunity to move on.
Dan, the Browns are the lowest scoring team in the NFL, 15.5 points per game. Does a quarterback solve all the Browns' offensive issues?
No, I don't think it does, because I still think you're thin at receiver. Jerry Jeudy obviously has been a big win for this franchise, over 1,000 yards. And I know yesterday was a little bit of a tough day for him, but he's a guy, and you can have him, like, he's a piece for this team. I'm a little worried about what we saw from David Njoku this year. I know statistically it's been okay, but he just didn't look like the David Njoku we saw at the end of last year, who seemed like on the verge of breaking out. And then after that, you've got to kind of figure out what is said Tillman. I don't know. Elijah Moore's going into free agency. I don't know if he's a guy that you're going to bring back. They really have to figure that out. And then their offensive line could end up in flux. We don't know who the left tackle is. We don't know what Joel Bitonio's future is. I feel good about Wyatt Teller and Jack Conklin, assuming Conklin is back next year. But I think there are a lot of questions on this offense. But it always starts with the quarterback. And if you can solve that, you can kind of work backwards from there.
Dan, it sounds like Kevin Stefanski's job is safe for now. The for now being the operative word that we keep hearing about. How hot is his seat? Is Ken Dorsey gone? We keep hearing that there could be some smaller changes. What do we know about what the Browns could look to do after this Ravens game?
It seems like Kevin is safe. I just would never rule anything out with this team and this organization. And I think going back to, again, this all revolves around the quarterback, right? Like going back to that discussion, I think the Browns have to sit down and say, hey, we're in a position to maybe draft a young quarterback and build around him. We have to make sure that we have the right guys picking that quarterback and that we have the right guys coaching that quarterback. And you look at a situation in Chicago, for example, and I don't know if Caleb Williams is going to turn into a legitimate NFL quarterback or not, but I think it's fair to say that he was set up for failure because they brought back a lame duck coach and a GM in Ryan Poles, who I don't know if he's going to keep his job or not. And Caleb didn't have a chance this year. So for the Browns, if they're going to draft a rookie quarterback, you better make sure you have the right GM and you better make sure you have the right coach and offensive coordinator. I do think Kevin is probably safe. I know that, it seems like NFL owners are a little more averse to paying guys not to work for them. And they did just give Kevin and Andrew those extensions. But I think they have to have some real discussions about Ken Dorsey. Is he the right guy to call this? I actually always thought Kevin was a pretty good play caller, and I was a little surprised when he gave that up. But Kevin is more comfortable calling that bigger personnel, kind of the Kubiak, Shanahan style of offense. And if you're going to draft a quarterback that doesn't fit that, you've got to make sure you have a guy calling the plays that does fit that quarterback. So again, I think I would be surprised if we're sitting here next Monday or Tuesday and talking about the Browns in a full-on head coaching search, but I would never rule anything out. And I think you have to at least have those discussions as you move into this next phase with your quarterback room.
How about this question? This comes up to me on social media all the time. What is Paul DePodesta? What does he actually do with the Cleveland Browns?
That's a really great question. I mean, he's got his hands in a lot of things, obviously. And I think it seems like this iteration of the Browns with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski has Paul DePodesta's fingerprints all over it, right? We all kind of know the Freddie Kitchens saga where they wanted Kevin Stefanski. John Dorsey kind of won out, got to pick Freddie Kitchens. That was a disaster. It ends up now with Stefanski and Andrew Berry. As far as what Paul DePodesta does, could there be a more vague title than Chief Strategy Officer? I just think he's got his fingerprints on a lot of different areas of the organization, including the football side, but also, some of the other stuff too. And it's hard to really make a case that, he goes all the way back to the Sashi Brown era, and you go back to 2016, there hasn't been a lot of success here. So I don't know what Paul DePodesta's future is with this organization. If they can find sort of a soft exit strategy for him, maybe put him more on the business side. I don't know what that is, but yeah, in the frame of what exactly would you say you do here? I think it's a little bit of everything for Paul DePodesta, but it hasn't really come with much success.
Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show, and our Fill in the Blank segment is brought to you by our friends over at Northeast Factory Direct. Holiday season is behind us. The new year is here. Kick off the new year with some of the best quality products at an unbelievable price over at Northeast Factory Direct. They truly have your whole house covered with kitchen cabinets, bedroom sets, dining room tables, hot tubs, sofas, so much more. You could shop online anytime by going to northeastfactorydirect.com, but you've got to check them out in store. It's truly a unique furniture buying experience. Massive warehouses filled with the best furniture that you could find. Check them out in Cleveland, Euclid, Macedonia, or North Canton. If you're looking for an even better deal, check out their outlet centers in Euclid or Canton. The most important thing, make sure to ask about that big play bonus. You're going to get an extra special hookup when you do. So visit Northeast Factory Direct in store today and ask for that big play bonus. You're going to thank us later.
Let's get to some fill in the blank brought to you by Northeast Factory Direct, fellas. The Cavs win against the Nuggets was
balanced. You saw the core four there all contributing over 20 points each for Mitchell, Mobley, Garland, and Allen. And you love to see that from your starters. And then they had solid play out of the bench. That's something that I think has been a formula for this Kenny Atkinson team throughout the entire season. I expect that on this West Coast trip. I love the fact that we start off the trip so strong. Only 4 losses coming into it. I expected them to pretty much split, but right now there's a lot of optimism around this team. And heck, I really think, I know it's early in the season, but really, the sky's the limit for what they're doing right now.
And when they're getting contributions from the entire roster, that's reason to be optimistic. And especially optimistic about what could come playoff time, because they're doing this against good teams. They've been doing it all year. But when you're getting that balanced contribution from Mobley, from Allen on a night in, night out basis, who in the NBA could stop these Cavs is really the question that needs to be asked. So I'm all in, and this West Coast trip is kind of only furthering and cementing those feelings.
Let's look even further ahead. If the Cavs stay healthy, they will blank this year.
Don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I think they can win the East. Yeah. I think that there's no doubt about it. I think right now they've got the best record in the NBA. They've certainly played some folks now. That was really the criticism early on, is that they really hadn't played anybody. We've seen that now. They've played against the best in the NBA, and they've shown up. Now, can that translate into the postseason? That was the question last year. J.B. Bickerstaff had that problem where we couldn't quite take it to the next level. I think what Kenny Atkinson is putting together is what the formula that'll take us to that next level, and that's what I'm looking for. And so I'd like to see us win the East, and then past that, we'll see, Nick. I want to see how this team is performing when we get to playoff time.
I agree. And I think, to get to the finals, you got to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's something that we haven't seen the last 2 years. So just playing in an Eastern Conference Finals for the shot to go to the NBA Finals would be awesome for this team that's currently, sitting pretty atop the Eastern Conference here, which is a great thing and only will be a benefactor come playoff time. So I'm going to say, make it to Eastern Conference Finals, and I'd be very happy with this Cavs season, but keep the momentum rolling. There's no reason to put a cap on how much fun we could have when they're playing this well.
Okay, currently the 5th best odds to win the title behind Boston, OKC, New York, Knicks, and Denver.
Okay.
How about the Cavs' most important guy off the bench?
Well, I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. Max Strus and his flowing locks now, Nick, coming back into the fold.
Good luck.
Whether or not he's going to be a starter or off the bench, that puts you with Isaac Okoro coming off the bench or in the starting lineup. I think that play is something I'm going to be looking for the next few weeks, is how he's able to work himself back into the fold and whether we continue to have the success that we have up to this point as he comes into the fold. Karis LeVert is somebody also that obviously when we've had our best stretches, Karis LeVert off the bench has looked unbelievable. So those 3 guys really are the guys that I focus on, although, Nick, there's a lot of guys on this bench who contribute night in, night out. So it's not all on 1 or 2 guys. There's anybody on this bench who can help us out.
And the way that Atkinson has handled these rotations is that most of the time, you don't really feel like you have a bench. We see a lot of Mitchell and Mobley paired together, and then we see a lot of Garland and Allen paired together, and that lessens the amount of strain that you're putting on a guy like Karis LeVert, who's probably my most important guy off the bench to this point, is Karis LeVert. You know, last NBA postseason, we did the joke where every night it was like Karis LeVert spun a wheel, and you never knew what other NBA player would haunt him. Some nights it's Michael Jordan, some nights it's Jordan Clarkson, other nights it was, you know, somebody horrible. This year, we've gotten a much more consistent Karis LeVert every time that he spun that wheel. So I want to keep seeing that version of Karis as we go through this regular season, because if he could be a piece come postseason time, especially when you're talking about those playoff road games, a guy that could come off the bench and score the basketball, I'm feeling really good about having Karis LeVert in a Cavalier uniform.
All right, it's not on our list, but I'm adding this one. The piece of Cavs merch that I would most likely buy right now is...
Oh, I've got some that are on the way. They didn't make it for Christmas. I got it for the boys, and that's a pair of the Cavs slides with the new City, what is it, City Edition? City Edition. Those are pretty sweet. I can't wait to get those in the mail. It's too bad. Thanks, Fanatics. It didn't make it here for Christmas, but it's a nice after-Christmas gift for the boys.
Yeah, anything with the City Connect is so cool. You know, the art museum, it's such a cool like hat tip to the city. So yeah, the City Connect stuff is hot right now.
Yeah, I've had my eyes on the blue hoodie, which they've got a few variations of them actually. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorites in most recent years out of all the teams. So I've just been creeping on the team store. They sold out of stuff like right away. So you got to stay on top of it to look your best. All right, let's take a short break. We'll be back with more Fill in the Blank right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show as we continue our Fill in the Blank, brought to you by our friends at Northeast Factory Direct. Okay, gang, the Buckeyes are beating Oregon if...
You see Will Howard be the Will Howard that he was in that Tennessee game. You see Chip Kelly and Ryan Day also with the play calling they had in that Tennessee game. And don't revert to what we saw in that Michigan game. Be the aggressor. Move the ball down the field, get it out to those wideouts. Let Will Howard really control the game, because I think he's ready for it. And I think from what we saw in that Tennessee game, that this team has the potential to really be good offensively, and I want to see more of that.
You know, if this were a boxing match, I want to see Chip Kelly in Ohio State throw the first real blow of this game. And I don't know if that's, you know, you win the toss, you take the ball first, then throw a shot to Jeremiah Smith. The first time that Ohio State and Oregon played, you know, the Ducks got the best of Ohio State. That's nationally the big storyline this week. That was a very close game. That came all the way down until the end. So I think early on, if you can get Jeremiah Smith involved, I don't know that there's a kid that's playing cornerback in the country right now that could guard that dude. So get Jeremiah Smith the ball. That should be the game plan. Be aggressive. And the Buckeyes should have less of an issue with the Ducks this time. I like that it's in Pasadena and not, you know, at Oregon. So that's a plus as well.
There's a couple other cool matchups besides OSU versus Oregon. The college football playoff game I'm most excited for this week is
Notre Dame, Georgia. Yeah. I think that one's going to be a bit of a throwback game. Notre Dame can run the ball a little bit. I think we're going to see kind of a rock fight down there. I like the under if you're betting on this particular game. I think Georgia's favored, but it's like 1.5 right now. I like Notre Dame's chances in this game. So that makes it interesting for me. You got an SEC team. You got Notre Dame, which also always garners a lot of national attention, and it's fun to see them on this stage. And, you know, I think in this case, I think Notre Dame's going to pull it out.
And they definitely have the horses, too. Speaking of horses, Broncos, if you will, I'm looking forward to Boise State hosting Penn State on that blue turf. Obviously, they won the Mountain West Conference, so they got the bye. We haven't seen them yet. I want to see what can Ashton Jeanty do against Penn State's defense. That's another guy that Browns fans are going to be kind of clamoring for if they don't go the quarterback route, if they trade back a little bit. Could Ashton Jeanty be in play, a guy that could potentially replace Nick Chubb? I want to see it against Penn State, because if he could look good against Penn State, then maybe that top 10 NFL pick becomes a reality. But until then, we'll have to see. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
James Franklin, does he pull a James Franklin in this game, lose to Boise? That's the question. I think. I think it could happen.
Well, fellas, we got New Year's around the corner. My New Year's resolution is...
Okay, hot take on these. Overrated.
Oh, very
completely overrated.
You could
He's
start
like,
a New
"I
Year.
boycott
You could
my
start a
New
New
Year's
Year resolution whenever. You could start a New Year's resolution on March 17th if you really wanted to.
So you guys don't kick off the New Year hot on anything?
I've tried. I've tried in the past. I've had resolutions all over the place, and none of them have really worked out. It's when you finally decide, hey, I'm going to do this, and it's really going to happen, not because of the date on the calendar, but because you really want to do it.
Yeah.
That's when you make changes. Hey, have fun, make your resolutions. That's great. Come a month and a half from now, that's when all the clubs are going to clear out of people, and I can get on the machines and everything else after all these resolution people are gone. That's what I look forward to. Enjoy your resolutions now. They're going to be done mid-February.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm dreading the most, really, is the people that are going to flood the gym. This is the first time where I've belonged to a gym, because before, I've just had my apartment gym, or when I was at Kent, dating back all the way until then, I had a gym that was readily available in my living area.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that I ever go to a gym. So I'm curious to see the flip come January of how many
resolutionists come in, and then they all leave by mid-February.
Okay, is that about it?
Yeah.
That's pretty much
it's a
what
real
you're looking
phenomenon.
for. Yeah.
Right.
Honestly, last year I did my resolution starting December 1st, very spontaneously.
Yeah.
I started a run streak, and I
remember
noticed it
that.
was so much easier to start way ahead of the new year. Now I feel the pressure. I don't know, it's psychological, but now that I feel the pressure of I have to, because everyone's doing it and it's number one, day one, I feel like I missed my most psychologically pleasing time to start a resolution, which actually would have been ahead of time in December.
Everybody else is going to be flamed out by March, so you've got till then to think of something good.
And why would you start anything on January 1st when you're hungover, you're sitting at home? That's the worst time to start a resolution anyway. So give yourself a little bit of time, give yourself a week or so, and then start those resolutions.
Touche.
Alrighty, we'll be back with more of the Big Play Cleveland show right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. It's time for our Would You Rather game, brought to you by our friends at Fairway Ford.
Would You Rather is brought to you by Fairway Ford. Fairway Ford is the biggest Ford truck dealership in Ohio. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s and Super Duty trucks, and they won't be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. Don't let that short drive to Canfield prevent you from saving thousands on your new truck. Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and the same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com. That's fairwayfordohio.com.
How about that for a New Year resolution, huh? Starting off the new year with a new truck.
New truck.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Help your friends move. Be the guy, the Johnny on the spot.
Yeah.
Guys, would you rather the Bengals, Dolphins, or Broncos get the AFC's last playoff spot?
Does it really matter? I'm going to be watching anyway.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see the Bengals because you know them. Familiarity breeds contempt. So the more familiar you are with a team, the more I can hate watch them, and that's what I do with the Bengals. And really, in the case of Joe Burrow, he's somebody who I would love to have as a quarterback of the Browns. I won't lie. A guy from Ohio. So it's fun to watch them in the playoffs. Although, make no bones about it, I still want to see them lose.
I'll go with the Denver Broncos because I think the Broncos show the Browns a blueprint for a path forward. It's up for the Browns to not try to outsmart themselves and think that they know more than everybody else in the National Football League. They were able to cut out the cancer that was Russell Wilson that was plaguing that Bronco franchise. They got Bo Nix. Now they're a game out of the playoffs. I would like to see Denver make the playoffs because it just enlists a little bit of hope in the Browns and Browns fans that we too can be let out of the dark. That is the Deshaun Watson albatross and into the light that would be a rookie quarterback. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, speaking of the dark, I mean, the Browns, we've got that dark cloud with Watson. Miles may want the trade. It's like, what are we going to do with Chubb? But then look at the Jets. They've got to decide what to do with Rodgers, hire a coach. There's been rumors that Garrett Wilson wants traded. So with that setting the scene, would you rather be the GM of the Browns or the Jets right now?
Well, based upon the rumors that I'm hearing, I'd rather be the GM of the Browns because they're talking about him failing upward, essentially, and maybe moving into a presidential title for the Cleveland Browns.
How about that?
How about that? Congratulations, Andrew Berry. I don't know what you did to earn it, but if you end up as the president, hey, I'm not going to begrudge a man his money. So congratulations on the new title.
Yeah,
So,
and that's a rumor right now.
It's a rumor.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I think I like that rumor a lot. It lets Andrew Berry be the cap space wizard that we hear so much about, and he can't draft a wide receiver to save his soul, but at least Jawan Briggs, the 5th string defensive tackle, is on a restructured contract that we won't pay any money for until 2030. So I do think there's value to having strategic cap manipulation and guys that know how to do that in the organization.
but he can't draft.
But having a football guy, having somebody that could call some shots come draft time, come free agency. Juan Thornhill was a big free agent acquisition. I can't remember a tackle that the guys made in a Browns uniform. So I do think having another thought partner, as they like to call them, might not be that bad of a thing this time around.
Got a lot of thought partners up there, not a whole lot of thoughts.
We've got 3 thought partners right here at this desk.
This will be an interesting one. Okay, we saw that those Browns tickets were as low as $6 yesterday.
Build the dome.
Would you rather have had a Chipotle burrito or a ticket to yesterday's Browns game?
First of all, let me say thank you to the viewers of this show. Last week, I famously went on here and I pleaded with people to take my tickets off my hands for my season tickets. And guess what? I got them sold. I got them sold for a little bit more than a Chipotle burrito, but
awesome.
I would happily take a Chipotle burrito over being in that stadium yesterday. That looked absolutely miserable. I've been in the stadium when it's like that. I wanted no part of that, not during the holidays, not any time, to be frank. And there was no way I was going to that game.
Chris is
Give me the burrito.
Guac. Wow. How about that? It's a little extra. I worked at Chipotle. It was like my first job.
How long did you make it?
I made it there a while. I made it like from when I was 16. So when do you turn 16? Your sophomore year?
Yeah.
Until right when I was about to graduate high school, I was done.
So
So
you put in a couple years.
2 years worth.
Did you work your way up to management?
No, I had no interest in working my way up to management.
You dedicated yourself a little bit more there, Nick.
I will say, like, it was an enjoyable, like just standing there grilling, like that was a decent way to pass the time. Like, it's what I like doing now. So.
Were you ever on the front lines, like doing the burrito?
Yeah, that's how you start. They start you on the front lines.
Yeah.
That is cool for like a day, but it gets old quick. It's fun. Like I used to play like games in my own head, like guess like what the person and stereotypes are real. Like you would be able to guess pretty accurately what each person would get depending on how they looked when they walked up to the line. But being on the grill was the most fun by far because you got to be in your own world.
One of my biggest questions for Chipotle workers is how come fajitas isn't an automatic ask? Like I noticed they have their little like rice, beans. And then every time I have to pretend like I just thought of it. Oh, and you know what? Because they're making the transfer from the initial 4 options over to the salsa person. Yeah. And I'm like, I got to jump in there and be like, oh, you know what? I think I'll also do some fajitas today.
That's
like I always act like it's a revelation, but it's really just because no one ever asks me and I got to like be assertive and get in there. Yeah. It's always like an awkward thing to do.
I think because like for the most part, if you were to ask that, like you would probably get like of every 10 people, we'd probably get like 8 or 9 no's. Okay, so I feel like that might be why.
It's because I'm in the minority.
But the fajitas are a great play. So more people should be hip to the fajitas. More people should get the fajitas. They should start to have to ask because of how many people are getting the fajitas.
Yeah, because I just noticed that they mention all the other ones.
Sure. They do. Yeah, it's weird.
Okay, well, speaking of, what's the
worst? This was a long time. Like, I was there pre-queso. Like, now they've got so much going on. Like, all these new meats. Like, man, when I was
couldn't
there,
keep up with it.
It was chicken and steak.
There's no way you could work in this environment.
No, this new age Chipotle, my mind would be blown.
Yeah, well, it just seems like they go with the rice option, white or brown. They got pinto or black beans.
Pinto.
Yeah, they'd really be asking all these questions, but then they gloss over fajitas like they're not even supposed to be there. So I'm always the one to go in there and be like, I'm going to do fajitas, please. What's the worst item you'd rather spend $6 on instead of Browns tickets?
You can't in the big 2024, you can't get much for $6 these days.
No, you really can't.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I went to Swenson's yesterday. Galley boy for my son. Yeah. So my youngest, his birthday was on the 22nd. So we can't put the birthdays together. Once again, happy birthday, Nick. You understand that. So we didn't do it on Christmas. We punted on that one, and we did it on Sunday. So I brought him to Swenson's, got a Galley boy, got a double cheeseburger. Yeah, you aren't paying $6. You're paying more than that for just about any kind of a burger.
Okay, all this food talk has got me thinking about the Pop-Tart Bowl, which we didn't really get to, but Chris had some epic tweets about. One for sure went viral.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, that's what sports should be about, right? You have fun, you got sports. That's what you're looking for in a bowl game, and that's what they do with Pop-Tarts. They do it big.
They do.
They've got sprinkles along the sidelines this year. They had Pop-Tart stripping, taking off that a little aluminum wrapper in a provocative way at midfield. I mean, just crazy stuff just all over the place. Even for the uprights, those were wrapped. Did you see the wrappings for that were also the aluminum? Yeah. So they really did it big. At the end of it, they got to select, the winning team got to select which Pop-Tart basically gets killed, and gets put in and gets toasted. And so they did that. You watch it kind of go down, and your dreams can come true too. He's holding up a sign. It's really great theater. They did a really good job with it, as they did last year. I love that thing. They got to make that a New Year's Six bowl.
For sure. Like if you're not, I mean, right, like it's gotten so much popularity online. Like if you're not in the top 12 or whatever, now that it's going to be 16 teams that go to the college football playoff, my goal would be at least get me in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Like they got the toaster. The trophy is a toaster where you could actually toast Pop-Tarts. Like the Pop-Tart Bowl is everything that's right with college football. And I put that out there on social media. And then, of course, I had the people like, despite the fact that Cam Ward opted out at halftime of it because he wants more money in the NFL. Like, I think any of us in this room probably would have made that same exact decision. Maybe it's weird that he did it at halftime. Like, why play the game at all? Just sit out. But I think any of us would have done the same thing. Why get hurt in the Pop-Tart Bowl?
And by the way, that wasn't the only cool bowl. You had the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl,
that was cool,
which was won by Miami of Ohio. We may have lost to OU, but we won the inaugural Snoop Dogg Bowl, and it was cool to see Snoop Dogg up there. He did realize that Miami was the Miami of Ohio, which was cool. I was a little worried about that. He drove out there in a vehicle, onto the field to present the trophy at the end. So you had two bowls right there at the same time between the Snoop Dogg Bowl, the Pop-Tart Bowl that were really cool. They were actually going up against that NFL game. Cincinnati was playing at the same time. So pretty wild times, made for a fun weekend. I always love the sports you get at this time of the year. You get the bowl games, you get the playoffs for the NFL, you got really the NBA starting to ramp up. So it's a really fun time, and it's nice to see these bowls that are able to really, grab onto that fun and really make it a good time for all the sports fans out there.
What is the most elite Pop-Tart flavor in your opinion?
Oh, classic strawberry. Give me strawberry with the frosting on it. It's got to have the frosting on it, by the way. You cannot have it plain. I'm sorry. That was a bad tweet. Whoever tweeted that out, that I think it was FanDuel or one of those, tweeted out that the most elite was the one without any frosting. Is strawberry. No, that's wrong.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Nick?
what's your... Oh, okay. I was going to say hot fudge sundae. You got to pick one of the chocolate ones.
Really? Yeah, well, you're getting warmer for me. I feel like it's the s'more or the brown...
The s'more is good.
Brown sugar cinnamon one. I don't know about the fruity flavors, though, as a top choice. It'd be interesting to see the polls online and dig into them. Did anyone see, I'm sure someone asked this, and there had to be a leader.
Well, I know for the Pop-Tart Bowl, the one that they ultimately chose, I think, was a cinnamon bun. It was like a cinnamon bun one that got toasted and then immediately came out the bottom and they ate it, which is kind of weird in a sense. But you see all the other Pop-Tarts around cheering that on, and it's I don't know really what's going on. If you think about it too much, it's kind of scary. But
the European mind couldn't comprehend that at all.
I don't always need to eat mine toasted. Sometimes it's just right out of the bag.
See, I always preferred it cold. I'm a cold to toasted. I don't eat these a lot, but when I did back in the day, give me a Pop-Tart cold 100% of the time. I don't like it that well once you heat it up.
Dude, I toast them. You got to toast them.
It's an experience toasted, but I always have to break off, regardless if it's toasted or cold, I'm always breaking off the outside edge. Does anyone else do that? I just like the middle. I just like all the good stuff. As soon as the frosting is no longer involved in my bite, I want nothing to do with you.
I'm just all here for the cannibalization there of Pop-Tarts, watching other Pop-Tarts getting eaten at the end of bowl games.
It's a great
Let's
time.
go.
Hey, okay, maybe the Browns can eat a win over the Ravens next week.
I hope not.
Or maybe not, so that So that, I don't know, hard segue, guys. We got to get out of here. Thanks for watching this week. We'll see you next week on the Big Play Cleveland Show.